Join my newsletter.
Yes! Join her newsletter.
Join my newsletter. Go and get some.ca. Join my fucking newsletter, please.
I got your newsletter yesterday.
Oh, where does sex come into it?
Sexual or something.
You freestyle prayers. Was that like a prayer?
I guess so.
Oh.
Our last guest, actually, because we don't put that part in the episode, but it's recorded. But our last guest called us out on it hard, like mid-podcast. He's like, you should have seen what these guys did before, like, we started. And it was really sweet, actually. When we watched, like, the prayer, he was like, he's a comedian. He started laughing at first, and then he, like, got serious about it. He, like, got into it.
I know.
It was really cute.
It's one of those things when you're like, oh, shit, I shouldn't be laughing.
No,
but definitely you
it's
can.
Fine.
Yeah.
It's also good just to go right to that divine place, because it's like, we're going to go there. It's like God's going to come up. It usually does. So it's like, if that makes you chuckle and laugh, get that anxiety out now. You ever see something so true that you couldn't unsee it? Something that you just knew would serve you. Whether it be self-awareness, plant medicine, a lover, a career. That's what we get down to here. Welcome to Disciplined Stoners, the gateway drug to mindfulness. Spark up or don't, and enjoy the show. Glad you're here.
And welcome back to another episode of Disciplined Stoners.
I'm your host, Ellevan.
My name is Winnie, and we are the gateway drug to mindfulness.
And today, we have such a delight on. We have a friend who's been on the show before. Win, you want to take this one?
This next guest is a certified relationship and sex therapist. She has more degrees than you can count on one hand. The amount of education and experience that this woman is providing the world is invaluable. Please welcome the host of Get Some Podcast, Michelle Fischler.
Oh my goodness. Something tells me I'm not going to sound as smart as it may appear.
You are delightful.
You had us on your podcast, and you had us fill out a form to go on your podcast.
Yeah.
And then I took that form and started using it with everyone.
Oh, good.
I literally took. I didn't. I was like, this is brilliant.
I didn't sign it.
I know, because I didn't want to send it back to you because it's a literal copy paste of your form.
I would love that. That is such a.
You've inspired us to
Good.
get better.
Yeah. So thanks for that.
I mean, it's pretty much trying to prevent ourselves from getting sued and losing. Well, not that we all had that much to lose, but
No, you've built it. If you spend time building something, you're investing in your podcast, you're out here growing it. It looks so good. I'm so happy that information is out there. You're taking the shame out of sex. It's important work. Appreciate you.
Yeah. And quickly back to the form, it helped us got closer to our guests before the show, because I'm lying. I copy pasted.
No, that is amazing. I love it.
And
I didn't even know that.
And they get us assets and stuff with the photos. Like, it's really, and then of course there's that liability aspect, which is like, we didn't have that before.
Well,
so
I think what I like about that form is it's informing the guest too, right?
I
It's like
agree.
an informed consent where they know what they're signing up for, which I'm all about being transparent.
And consent.
yes,
Because because a lot of these things are already implied, except they're not written anywhere. And so I just don't want to surprise anybody.
yeah.
And
You're a communication genius.
I like to communicate things. Yes, I am
It's about being concise as well, and direct and honest and
honest and transparent.
smart.
It's really important for me to surround myself with people who are transparent, right? I'm not big on things going on
Right.
behind the scenes.
Is that something that you had to like learn and develop over time, or were you always kind of like honesty, like this is what I'm pushing for always first?
Well, I need transparency so that I don't come up with a story,
Well said.
right?
Wow.
Yeah, I think that sometimes
That just blew my mind right now.
That's just
Holy.
self-awareness.
I come up with
Yeah.
so many stories.
Oh,
Yes.
we're story factories, bro. Like, holy.
We are meaning makers and we come up with stories. And oftentimes, depending on who you are and what your history's been, those stories might not be completely accurate. Sometimes
We have
they might
bias.
be.
We have perspective bias up and down, straight up all day.
Yeah, so what I like to do is just be real with me. Tell me what's going on. And then I can settle myself and I can be present
What-
instead of
What happens when you come up against someone who doesn't know that they're not being real with you, or like that they don't want to have that conversation, so they use masking techniques to like what happens then?
Well, I would likely spend less time with them, but sometimes, depending on the situation, I will name it.
Say it.
Ooh.
I say it, but I try to not do it in a confrontational way,
Brilliant.
or I'll say something like, "Hey, I just need to check something out with you." And I'll be open. I'll say, sometimes I have the story, and it's always good for me to check it out
Nice.
with the
You're
person.
investigating.
Clarify.
So can you tell me what actually is the meaning behind what you just said?
Nice.
And I'll be honest, most of the time, well, 60% of the time, I'm actually wrong,
Word.
Ooh.
which is so helpful.
Yes.
Because then I can just chill out and I can just feel things change in my body. What is
Love
the word?
that.
It's called, I think it's mentalization, where you take in your interpretation and then you think about other possible interpretations. And then you sometimes can check it out with somebody to just, because we all have our own story from our history, right? And it can sometimes pop up when it's not necessary.
Mechanisms that your internal defense system has created in place when you get triggered or delighted or allured or you feel an inkling in a certain way.
Yeah.
You have a reaction.
Yeah, and so it kind of can be really fast. And I think that's why mindfulness has been really, really helpful for me, because now, instead of always having to go through the mentalization type of stuff, I can just take a deep breath. I look more into, okay, what am I doing? It becomes less important to me about what it actually is their story now, because I feel way more anchored in mine.
Yes. Power of your own yes. That's right. And you should have precedent over your spiritual direction at every point.
Yeah, like if you can turn to your inward and be able to know the purpose, why you're doing something, right? It's coming from a good place. You're trying to be a good human. I think it's hilarious that they stuck me in the middle, right? Because I'm not, as you can see, not smoking that.
We're called
you may find that
stoners.
things start to change in this conversation soon.
Today it's called Stoners Discipline Stoners.
We are so lucky to have Michelle. We thought we couldn't have Michelle because of the weed smoking, but we can.
You can have
because
me.
she's not smoking.
No judgments at all.
Here's the thing. You were just saying about mindfulness, though.
Yeah.
What I admire about your mindfulness is that you're still also playful. You're still also light in spirit. I find sometimes when you try to bring awareness to something, it equates getting neurotic because you're just running it in your head and you let that paralyze you. But you communicate in a way where I feel like perhaps you're remaining your power to stay playful or have a light attitude about it. No?
Yeah.
Am I, okay, that's what I feel like.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
I am, and I don't think I really realized how playful I was until I started, and I would probably even say I wouldn't really have named it even 4 years ago. But I think that as more research and knowledge comes up around sex and what we know works and doesn't work now based on research versus like
Feelings.
just sort of feelings, because there was nothing to go on, right? We would be like, in my gut, what is the right thing to do here? Which is, as a therapist, you kind of want to have some direction. And even though I thought I'm still like on the right direction now that the research is coming out, but we do know that playfulness is such an important part of healthy sexuality.
It got to be in the room when you're interacting with each other in an intimate sense. It has to be.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't know how to play.
I think that I've learned this.
Yeah,
I don't know.
learned
There
this.
was like something like growing up, even through my 20s, like there was something that was like begging to let go.
Yeah.
And I was just like, no, sex is mechanical. And like, I never got taught that pleasure is a priority. Like,
I'm with you on that.
it was crazy.
Oh my God. I honestly, when I think back on some of my earlier sexual experiences, I don't really, I remember them, but I don't think I was in my body. I think I was more like, this is what I'm supposed to do.
Totally.
Oh, man,
Sorry.
that sucks.
Old partners.
Yeah, sorry.
No, but it's also like, is there not a process to check in on that?
Well, I think you have to learn how to like properly communicate, because communicating in the bedroom is so tricky too. Like that's been a learning process over time. So you can't just like during be like, I want things to change.
Oh yeah, we talked about that on the first episode. You gave us advice on that.
Yeah.
Oh, was
Yeah.
it like, don't talk
How
about
long?
it during sex?
She was like, how long should you wait till afterwards? And you were like, at least a couple hours, probably a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't have serious conversations about sex
Very
during
helpful.
sex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's smart.
Yeah, and back to the playfulness piece.
Yes.
What I started to notice then is when I'm doing my work, that I'm working with people who come in who are quite serious initially, and I think the seriousness is like fear.
Yeah.
They're
Totally.
afraid. Right?
Anytime.
They're scared. And I think that when you can show up and have a smile, that it helps to disarm people where they can kind of relax. I'm not going to tell them that they are totally fucked or broken. People come in thinking that I am going to tell them what they were terrified to hear.
Yeah.
Right, as truth. That's why a lot of people feel a lot lighter even after a first session, where you can be like, yeah, of course you feel that way. And no, that is not abnormal.
Like you're not completely alone.
Yeah.
And here's a certified voice to say so.
Yeah, and then when you can, and I feel like we talked about this on the other episode, where when you can start talking about something that typically is quite serious for the couples, at least that I see, it's a serious conversation. It's a serious
Energy.
experience
Yeah.
when they have sex.
Yeah.
It's very serious, and teaching them to be able to have these conversations and be able to smile about it. Like,
Yeah.
you need to be able to learn how to do that first outside of the bedroom, and then you can kind of take
Yeah.
that into the bedroom.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And it really is like step by step like that. I feel like you got to just start talking about it a little bit first, you know?
Yeah.
Get a little uncomfortable, get a little giddy.
Yeah, people always want to, it's like people come in and they just want to fix their sex life. And I
Turn
have
up
to,
my fuck meter.
yeah, like we just want to have fun now with sex. And without
work.
and skipping over everything that is required to happen to get you.
They want to get
There.
better. So you
Is
got to
there-
reverse engineer getting better, and then it will lead you to that playfulness because you have to do it more. And when you're like taking yourself so serious at first, you're going to suck because it's at first. You're not going to be as good, even if you're the best lay for somebody else for this person,
Yeah.
right? You have to learn each other's bodies. Temperatures, all this different exploration. So you got to go and return, and it's impossible to do that with such rigidness.
No,
you have to
yeah.
be in like a fluid state to learn.
Yeah,
and
people
get
don't
better.
people don't want to reverse engineer. That's what I've learned through
Shit.
this work. And as we all learn with experience, when I was a new sex therapist, I'd be like, okay, I mean, you guys fight all the time and you don't hang out, but okay, let's work on your sex life.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
that does not work. As a matter of fact, it can make people feel even more disheartened because they're like, now we went to go see a sex therapist and that's like our last ditch effort, and we weren't able to fix it, right? So we are broken. What I know now is that you just can't skip the step. Like, you cannot skip the reverse engineer of trying to understand your part, what you bring to the dynamic that's happening, because it's a couple's experience, right? Everyone wants to like point a finger and be like, well, it's all them. I'm like, no, it is the two of you in a dynamic and you're feeding into each other. If one person steps out of it, there's no more of that dynamic. And when people are able then to be like, okay, what's my part? It can feel uncomfortable.
Yeah. Everywhere you go, though, there you are, eh? And then people come into the same problems in their work, in their relationship, in their friendships, and somehow they find a way to say that all these different people did the same thing to me in a victimhood. And you're like, you don't think that there's a scent to this case? There's not a through here? What's the line? You, dear.
Yeah.
And it's fucking an urge to not grow. Their life here on this earth, this one time, I believe in reincarnation, they're like, nah.
Why do you think?
Pain. This is part of their dharma. They have to live a painful experience, and the rest of their life is too blessed, son. They didn't manifest a handicap. They didn't manifest anything else that brings them pain, so they create the pain to balance their dharma in this lifetime. That's my spiritual take on it. Holler at your boy. What?
Damn.
There must be some like evidence around this fear of vulnerability. Like, because if you're asking someone to look inward, that's kind of like kind of cracking yourself open, right? Like, and looking at all those hiding places where we put stuff that we've just put away because we were taught that or whatever.
Yeah.
And so asking someone to be vulnerable, I think, comes with like a whole like nasty tumbleweed of shit.
Do inventory on your whole basement.
Yeah.
We're not asking someone to reorganize a shelf in their living room where there's going to be guests. We're asking them to take inventory of their basement, give away what they don't need, trash what's not serving them, dig all these old things up that they thought they didn't have to look at until they moved. Guess what? You're moving. You're changing identity. You want something more. You got to give something more. The balance of compensation.
thank goodness for research, but there have been, and I forget if it was with CBT or if it was with mindfulness, but they have fMRI studies where they're able to look at brain waves and all of that stuff. And they would ask people they'd give them some sort of something that produced anxiety for them that they already knew about.
Their mom's voice.
Tourette's. That's it. Like if,
Yeah, I didn't have to do that one.
And so they gave them, they told them to, okay, what I want you to do is whatever like feelings, whatever comes up for you, push it away. Psychologically try to like just push it away. And then they also asked them would give a similar scenario and ask them to kind of just sit with it for a bit, like acknowledge it, notice it. And their body was in less distress when they just leaned into it.
Yep.
Right? And that is how that piece of research is what it's almost like a safety belt for my clients.
oh,
Because I can say to them, and now this is not something that should be used. You know, mindfulness is an amazing way of being, and a great tool for therapy. It's not so great with people who are in like full on crisis PTSD, like a situation, right? We're a step away from that. But when you can reassure them and say, okay, and we do it in the office, right? Where I'll be like, you know, when we talk and you leave here, you feel a bit lighter. Yeah, you might feel emotion, but they start to like not think about the anxious thoughts as much, right? And so when they have that reassurance, they're more willing to
continue
the work, because people sometimes think that if they think about like past stuff that was really upsetting for them or relationships that they had, that they're just going to like fall into the shame spiral. Like they're going to just fall into a deep dark hole and never be able to come out.
Yeah. So that's like, you can't do that when you have like you can't fall into a hole when you have responsibilities and you're living a life and you're a pillar of your family and all of these things, right? So then it's almost like you feel like you don't have you just don't have the support to go inward and like look at that, because you think everything will tower down.
Yeah, or there's been someone in their family who has fallen into a hole and never come out, so they're like, I'm not going there.
Yeah.
Right, somebody who's maybe experienced depression. But again, like depression is very much about like not wanting to deal, right? Like it's I'm gonna think about my thoughts here for a second. I'm gonna get mindful. Yeah. But when these specific people I'm talking about see somebody in their family that say has really, really struggled with depression, emotions feel very scary for them. They kind of feel like that could be me, and so I'm going to go in completely the opposite direction. And oftentimes, if we were to look at people who maybe have really struggled with depression, oftentimes it is a very you're very inward.
Oh yeah, you just dig yourself a hole until you're in this dense, dark hole, and you look up and you're like, how the fuck did I get down here?
Exactly.
Unless you find toxic positivity, that was me. All through my 20s, we always had toxic positivity. Mm-hmm. Everything's all right, don't even bother going there.
Oh my God, so is that how you did it?
Yeah.
Really?
I was like, I'm the funny guy.
But he would have like anger fits.
Man fits, punch myself in the face, trash my studio.
And then would just kind of ignore that and go back to positivity after the emotion was moved.
I'm fully aware. I'm so healed. I am Jesus. Yes.
Okay, wait. Are you okay if I ask you a couple questions around this?
Hit me.
Okay, cool. What for you, like, how did you go from that? How did you decide that maybe there was an alternative way of being?
I want to get rich. I wanted to get rich. I was so sick of just seeing my parents and my bank accounts just go like, oh, wait until you're broke again. Oh, cool, you got something? Spend until you're broke again. I'm like, obviously, I don't have the mechanical tools to change this, so I'm going to turn to books. My friend Cal made me read Think and Grow Rich. And then I was like, great. And that sparked me onto that awareness. And then I was like, okay, I got to keep reading, got to keep listening to audiobooks. And then when I say rich, I mean abundant in wealth, like successful, like something. Like fine. If I couldn't fathom contribute valuable service yet. I didn't know that yet. I didn't know how to write an invoice. I only knew how to look
I don't
for
think
quick
we
jobs.
were clear on what we actually wanted to do with our lives,
even though
before we found
I had
mindfulness.
to stand up though. I had acted. I did all this great, cool stuff at a young age, but still I didn't really have a chief aim in life.
Yeah.
And then this stuff just walked me into something so much bigger than any dollar amount could ever give me. It was like you being the president of your universe. Like there's no combating with anyone else but yourself and your own mind. And then the power.
But you have to trust somebody.
I had nothing else.
But like whatever you're reading or whoever's talking to you, really have to trust it or them.
You must.
To decide to go another way because you were probably being, when you were younger, that was all you knew. That's what probably kept you going.
That's the tools I learned from my mom.
And you probably needed it at that point in time, right?
Oh, well, it was the only way to get anywhere is to like kind of share your light. And even if it's blind light, it's better than nothing.
Exactly. And being able to then listen to somebody say, actually, what if that did work for you? I mean, it's not working anymore. What about this other way of thinking? And I think the trust that it takes to...
I hated it.
Bob Proctor.
When he started like expanding in that way, I was pissed all the time. Our relationship like really took a hit.
Why do you think?
I had friends who were millionaires and fucking started their own agency, and I was like, oh my God, you're stoners like me. We listen to hip hop. I can do it if you can do it. You know, you're from a rough area. I'm so in love in these friendships that I trusted because it was right there. And I knew that if I just followed what excited me and kind of took principles I was learning from them in business, I could get there. But I knew I was young, so I had to just stick to what I was doing. And Winnie was still very much under the stigma of you have to get a job for a paycheck and stuff like that. And I never abided by those rules really well. And I was damn right disrespectful to anyone who followed that structure. And
and he sabotaged every
job I'd ever get. Like for sure. It's like I shake the boss's hand like, oh, you're right, bye. Like, you're right. No, they're like, you're not doing it. I'm like, you're right. Like, I don't care. And just leave. But then I remember I started getting these gigs, like I'd get hired from a modeling agency to do promos at the boat show, and then I met the office ladies, and they heard I did stuff on the mic, and they upgraded me to the announcer at the boat show. So like life and the universe and even jobs I did take were all pushing me there. So it was right around that time where I was like looking for that glimmering hope. And this is after I like hit the scene as a musician and established myself, but it's still like, it's not a business yet. Like you can play your heart out at bars for your whole life, and it's not really a business yet. So it was. I believed I could make my passion work, and I was just so young, and it was basically the start of a new learning. And I was just guided by like Bob Proctor, Abraham Hicks, like follow your internal, but like it hadn't manifested outward at all yet. And I was playing affirmations like, I am rich. And Winnie's walking around paying the rent like, fuck this guy, this fucking nutso, you know, and it was turbulent. But then things started to happen for her that made her believe too.
Well, you might know Esther Perel played a large role in my
I love her so much.
I love her so
I have,
much.
I think, sent her 3 emails.
Oh, you guys would have a great conversation, Esther.
Hello.
I'd love to hear that conversation.
Oh, yeah. So she was for you.
Yeah, so I was really, I grew up conservatively, I think, in the latter half of my life. We moved to Alberta, and it just felt a little bit more structured on how life was supposed to go. Mm-hmm. So I thought we were supposed to get jobs I thought I was supposed to break my back, honestly, until my acting career blew up and I could finally just pay bills with acting. You know, that's what I thought.
And that's how I guess your parents sort of
Well,
saw.
It's how I perceived what I was looking at, I think. I don't know. I don't necessarily know if that's what they were doing, but I definitely thought of it like that. You know, my dad spent a lot of time away. He worked really, really hard. Mm-hmm. He sacrificed time with his family for a paycheck. So, you know, and that's I love him so much. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I don't remember where I was.
Yeah, you really had to let go of control then, I guess, because
Yeah. It was so frustrating for me to hold this belief that jobs are what we should be doing. You should be working as hard as I am hour-wise when you're, staying home and making music all day and getting high when I wasn't on board with weed. There was a time, ladies and gentlemen, when I had non-binary friends, I was not a weed head. And I thought that I didn't understand it as a medicine at all, and a lifestyle, really.
Yeah.
So we were just clashing all the time. It really was tough around those times, I think. And I was just fuck you. Can't you see that I'm breaking myself to take care of us? And you're over here being I am abundant. It felt patronizing. We were not on the same frequency. And he hopped a pretty big, it was he was here with me and then he wasn't anymore. And I was holy shit, I don't know. We both didn't know. That was probably the first breakup scare. Yeah. Probably the first and only, I think.
We were long distance too. There was that brief time.
Yeah.
9 months long distance.
Yeah.
Wow. 9 months long distance.
Yeah, that's really hard.
Yeah.
So that was one other one. But no, this was the biggest gap spiritually.
But then going back to Esther Perel, real quick, just to wrap it up.
Yeah, what helped you? What helped? I mean, because I had a constant. No, do yourself.
I was listening to School of Greatness, Lewis Howes, shout out podcast, and Esther was on his podcast, and that's how I found her. And it was very surface level mindfulness for me. It wasn't, but I thought, it's a step in the right direction, I think.
Yeah.
But Esther said something so impactful that I'll never forget. And she's like, you're going to have multiple partners in your life, no matter what. Either that partner stays the same, but they're different people, or you have multiple people. Those are the two lanes. But you're getting different people your entire life.
I'm very different now.
And we'd grown up watching movies that were oh my God, you've changed. That's a bad thing. Yes. So I had that in my head too. I'm you're not the guy that I fell in love with.
Yeah, I'm not 18.
Thank God that guy sucked in comparison to this guy.
Yeah.
So, and then I was I get to fall in love with a different human, and then everything changed, I think, at that point.
But there has been times where it's been I grow, you grow, I grow, and you're always kind of
we're never level
each other.
or rarely level.
But in those situations, Winnie, to be able to not stay stuck in your position, it really takes you having to quiet down the noise of messages that you've received, I don't know, somewhere along the line of growing up, whether it's through family, what work is, and to be able to say, okay, that's not necessarily fact, right? It's not necessarily true that someone cannot become successful in a different kind of way.
Oh, my belief system has completely changed now, thank God. And now I'm like, I wake up every day being like, holy shit, I'm living the dream.
Yeah.
That's so nice to feel, even though there's challenges still. Like, that doesn't go away.
There's
Challenges
always things.
never go away.
Yeah.
And even the moments where you get a bit unhinged and unanchored, right? Like,
oh my God. So, let me hit you with this. Him and I go to a Canna and Kink party on Sunday night, this past Sunday.
that sounds so fun. Oh my God.
Yeah, you'd love it. You got to come.
Yeah, you should come
50
next
Shades
time.
of Green. It was a Canna and Kink, and there was like a live sex demonstration.
OMG.
Yeah,
Okay,
it was
next
kink.
year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's quarterly, I think. So.
Oh, good.
Yeah, we'll hit you up.
Okay, so it was great. Loved it. Shout out Raven for putting it together, and Star. But it was also like just a little expansive for me. It was a little overwhelming towards the end for me. And I was, getting higher probably. So I imagine that had something to do with it as well. Okay. So that happens. That experience happens. Nothing crazy. We don't fight or anything like the last time I felt overwhelmed.
Did you know what it was specifically?
Yeah, it was
that
fisting.
kind of went into your. Oh yeah.
Yeah, it just pushed the edge.
Did you watch someone get fisted?
Yeah.
What the F, guys? Like, what? Oh my God.
Yeah, I know. It was very exciting and stimulating.
Holy shizzle.
I know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so you saw somebody getting fisted.
Which was
Yeah.
new for us, both of us. Have
like,
never
you
seen
didn't
that.
know that was even a thing that
No.
people did.
Well, we knew it was a thing that people did.
Let's look at your.
I was gonna say I've
porn
seen it.
search.
You know, I'll tell you the truth though about fisting. I'll be fully honest. If I'm in the mode where I'm going and I'm checking that out, I'm looking and I'm going, I'm going back. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not doing that whole video through.
I just want to say.
I'm sorry. I respect to each their own. Respect.
Yeah, I also just want to say now that we kind of let that out.
Let the cat out the bag.
Yeah.
Let the fist out the bag.
That.
What do you mean? What?
Like
you
that
tried it?
information.
We weren't going to say what it was.
Yeah.
Oh.
I don't. It's
That's
what
okay.
happened.
It's
I'm sure.
beautiful.
Yeah, and also like during the demonstration, like the people involved, like there was a lot of communication going on.
Yeah.
Like we couldn't hear that; they were talking to themselves, but
It was
like you could
professional.
see it, and there was nothing. It didn't feel. For what we were watching, there didn't feel like anything inappropriate or unsafe was happening. I just
professional,
wanted
it was
to
safe,
clarify
it was
that.
Well,
clean.
and FYI, fisting for some people, like, people love it.
Yeah, very satisfying. Yeah.
It's like everyone is so different. They like different kinds of sensations. Sometimes that sensation of being, I think it's been described as like being filled up type of thing.
Sure.
That's
Yeah.
nice.
Right?
Yeah.
Being full is a great feeling.
Yeah. I love like a Thanksgiving after Thanksgiving dinner. Full as a turkey. Full as a fist and a turkey.
Okay, wait a minute. Okay,
But-
anyways, you
Okay, we just
you're
didn't
like
know. We
you're
just
getting
didn't know.
Okay,
We just
so
didn't
we
know.
saw this show.
That's cool.
Nothing because the last time I felt expansive in a sexual situation, I
fought.
I got triggered.
I
And
feel like
fought.
we talked about this the last
We
time.
may-
Was this on the resort?
Yeah.
No,
No.
This
That's
is on the nude beach.
The first time at the
First
resort.
time at the resort.
When
Okay.
we were sourcing a unicorn. And
Yes. Yeah, it's okay. Life is to experience.
It's very creative.
So the show happens, and then I'm like, that's cool. That was cool. Like
And I checked in with her though this time though, right?
Did you
Yes.
say I want to try that? Is that what you did? Is that what caused the
No,
fight?
I did look at her. There was one moment where she was getting fisted, and the guy said, "If anyone would like to come around for a better look," and I looked at her and said, "Is it weird that I want to look?" And she's like, "Yes." I'm like,
Please don't.
And then
Please
I'm like,
don't
"I'm
go.
not gonna go," and she's like, "Thank you." And I'm like, "For sure." And just like I was like, when I was feeling overwhelmed, I looked at her. I'm like, "How you doing? Like, do you want to dip? Like, do you want to leave?" So it was some good communication.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay,
That's
so-
great.
That all happens, and then just yesterday morning, okay, I'm not getting a lot of sleep. We've had full days since that.
We just got in that
party.
morning from Florida, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Full days since that party. Yesterday morning, I wake up feeling very insecure and not connected with him, and I'm making up a story in my head. And he sets an extra alarm for me because it's
Need one?
it's 5 a.m. and I don't know if I'll, the first one.
Yeah.
And at 5 a.m. I woke up feeling insecure for no reason that I'm aware of. Potentially like the movie that we watched the night before. There was some infidelity in that movie.
Okay.
I don't know. It might be planting a seed. I don't know. Whatever. So
The seed's already there. It's in all of our heads.
yeah, right?
Yeah.
So then my alarm goes off. I get up. I go to shut off his extra alarm and take his phone out. And he's like, oh, put my phone back. And my head is like, oh, my God, he's cheating on me. Like,
He's
I'm like,
He's texting the person that got fisted.
yeah. Yeah. Yes. And just completely irrational
I want to
thoughts.
set an alarm for myself.
Yeah. And so I know. I'm saying.
Did you name it though? Did you say it or no?
Not when during that that moment.
In that moment when you got upset about the phone thing, you didn't say anything, I guess. At that
No,
point.
I just put the phone back in the room,
okay.
his phone back in his room. Yeah, I'm learning to try and take space from my initial reactions before I because I do think that my story is a lie a lot of
Right.
the time. I do
Right.
think I'm a little squirrely
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah.
But then this whole morning, I'm just making up this story. I have to go teach a yoga class. I'm not present in the yoga class. Come back. We have to do a podcast. He's set up. He's being Hansel.
It would be so hard to do a podcast disconnected.
Yes.
Like the two of you, right?
Yes.
Oh my God.
And so I go into the shower and I'm like, fuck, this can't be. I realize that this is old patterning. Like it's programming, excuse me. Like I when I'm in the shower, I'm like, there's nothing, it's not his fault. Like what's going on here? Why are you insecure? And yeah, I just explored that. And then I came out and I was like, I'm feeling really insecure and just decided to, instead of be like, hey, fuck you.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be cheating on me.
Exactly. And then how did he respond?
Oh, he was great. He's like, come, he wanted to fix. I think his go-to is let me fix this for you. Yeah. But when I just said I just want your love right now, he was like, come here. And I cried on him.
And it would have been so different if you came out and were like, you're fucking cheating on me.
It's so different.
Right?
Yeah. And so I don't know where that's.
Thank you for that awareness, though, and that vulnerability to share that story. That's so beautiful.
Thank you for allowing me to share it as well.
Yeah, no, that's great.
No, that's so good. But these seeds that we're talking about, I like to use the garden metaphor.
We all have them.
We all have them. And those seeds are sometimes I think of them as weeds, and we want to starve it. Right? So if we think about our lives moving forward, what we want it to look at, we can kind of look at it as a garden, right? We grow up, there are some weeds in our garden, and there's flowers. And then we might come to a place where we're like, I don't want those weeds anymore.
Right.
But the thing is, weeds have very strong roots. And it's really hard to get all the way to the bottom. So you're never going to totally, but, and they're going to pop up if you're not watching out.
Careful with your thoughts.
But they'll still pop up. You just, exactly, no matter what.
And we can keep watering it.
With focus.
Right? We could water it, though, with the story, or we could try to starve the weed.
No more nutrients.
Right? And start to lean more into the flower.
I like it.
Yeah, and so that is what I realized through my work is that the skipping that part just wasn't going to help my clients. And a lot of the work I do, I mean, obviously we do talk about sex. We talk about sex a lot, but we talk a lot about these messages and the shame and how we can change the narrative. And so what it hasn't launched yet, but I created a module. It's called Unlearning Sexual Shame.
Yes.
And even though it's called sexual shame, there are shameful messages that we may have learned growing up that weren't necessarily based in any kind of sexual type of
Right.
experience, right? Some were not. That even if you were, say, a perfectionist, right? Perfectionism and sex do not go well together.
No.
Right?
I never knew sex was so messy.
It's so messy and it's unpredictable.
But it's like if you go at it lightly, then
Perfect
it's so
chaos
fun.
and harmony.
Yeah.
You like blast off into chaos because of desire,
Yeah.
and then you find a way to get rhythm with it, which is harmony.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of sexual concerns are based, there's a lot of anxiety, the underlying anxiety. And anxiety really is people trying to control a situation. What can I do to make sure that nothing bad happens?
What other scenario is more preconceived than sex for humans? We dream about sex accidentally all day.
And you never know quite how it's going to go. And the more you start to want to put it somewhere or move it somewhere,
Control it.
you all of a sudden get into your head because you're thinking too much. And it's like having people who have grown up with ideas around perfection, or maybe, I mean, these are people that grew up in fairly great homes, but there was a big emphasis on grades, like doing really well, right? And so they just wanted to do well, and they do well, right? Many people in my practice are extremely successful, but they cannot do sex,
Oh,
right? Because sex, it's trying to teach them the way they should be, the healthy way of thinking about sex, goes completely against how they
do well.
were taught
Just do well.
to
To
live,
live.
to
live.
be.
Yeah. So how
yeah.
does one, like, what do you suggest in terms of people getting back into their senses and back into their body? Like, is that something that you work with?
Yeah, yes, it's mindfulness. That really is the only way to do it.
only way to do it. We're the gateway to it.
I remember when I first started doing therapy, it was at a time where I had realized that, like, I had some stories around abandonment. And I was in my mid-20s, and I was not bringing in a whole lot of cash, and therapy was expensive, and but I knew that I needed it, so I went to my first one, and the therapist that I ended up choosing, I did like a little round of therapists, and the therapist that I ended up choosing at the end of our session was like, I think that, like, this is a good fit, and I'd like to keep your rate very low, like so helpful low. And I just started bursting in tears at the end of it. And
Yeah, I've done that too,
yeah.
like when I see people and I'm just like, I think that we could work together, and I know that you are like struggling. You're going to make me cry.
yeah, sorry. I
No,
cry.
but like I know that you're struggling, but I feel like I could learn a lot from you, and I
Yeah.
feel like you could be
yeah.
helped. And
Yeah.
can serve
So
each other
I
somehow.
started
Yeah.
bursting into tears, and she was like, okay, so like what, even now, geez.
That's so lovely.
But she was like, okay, so like what happened in your body then? Because it was just like there was something that you were holding that like couldn't be held anymore, and it exploded. And she was like, and while you're totally in a safe space to do that, she's like, I don't actually want to encourage that type of like explosive behavior, because we want to start to massage it out in a way that is less shocking to the body.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was really, really cool. And it also like gave me the opportunities to start looking at those things that we don't want to look at in incrementally.
Yeah, and vulnerability is key with sex, because sex is a vulnerable experience, especially if you have a vulva, because you put yourself, I mean, could be, depending on the kind of sex that you like, going inside of you.
Yeah.
You're more susceptible to infections. You're
the open.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so there
I agree.
To be present and to be open. It's sex is vulnerable and it can be very scary. And if you're trying to protect yourself,
it's not going to feel good.
Vulnerability, it's not going to feel good, right? You're going to be very much trying to escape in your mind from it. That really got you, didn't it?
No, that's beautiful. That's true.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and then the dissociation starts happening, and then you get more and more out of your body.
You're so out of your body,
Yeah.
and then the idea of getting into your body again, and that's where the sensate focused therapy, which is like a very, very well-practiced type of therapy that sex therapists use with people who have been out of their body or in a relationship where there's been a lot of disconnection. And so they're always like thinking, are they having a good time? What are they thinking about? Because
or just programming, like what you think you're supposed to do.
Exactly.
Even like holding it.
Holding what?
For men, when you get
what are you talking about?
when you get it going, you get we've recently, I'm gonna be straight up with this, like thought it was like the whole intention was
Your
like,
hard
Is
boner.
that your penis?
that's my penis.
Oh, okay.
And I'm going like, but it's also the energy. It's not just my penis. It's like the energy I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So it's like when you get an erection, say, and like you're gonna have sex, and it's like your intention is like hold the hard dick for as long as you can and just be like a bull and just be like boom and you're like no. As of lately, I've been releasing it and let it go through ebbs and flows, and the actual tissue of the shaft gets harder for longer when you let it relax for a bit. And she had a preconception of what that meant if I wasn't just like on 10 the whole time.
I was like, oh my God, I must
not
not be turning him on.
Exactly.
But I need the room
my
to
gosh.
breathe. And so we, like, there's been, even just over the past couple of years, we've been together for like 16 years. And it's like, oh, you can just release. And then she catches the ebbs with the flows. And then vice versa. It's all just like a process of growth into a journey.
Yeah.
So it's just a preconceived idea of programming I had that was like, be a fucking...
When it comes to a penis, everyone's been lied about. Like, in terms of the guys have been lied about how it's supposed to work and the meaning behind it. And I think women have these expectations based on like what we've heard. Like if he's losing his erection, it means, or if he's not ejaculating, there must be something
love you
because
anymore.
all guys can come in a second, right?
Yeah.
And
it's so much pressure.
there's a lot of undoing that needs to happen when it comes to male sexuality, for sure.
Yeah, and I feel like I didn't scratch the surface of this type of education until my 30s.
Yeah. I mean, thankfully I had sex with Sue, but again...
Did you? How was she? I had to.
You're so funny. But I feel really lucky that I had her to teach me sex ed, because if I didn't have her, I'd be like, what the hell, learning about penises, but they're called bananas. And sex ed was pretty crazy.
Even think that like when I watched Sex with Sue, it was like for entertainment. Like I wasn't taking it to a place where I was like, oh, this is what like sex is going to be like. I had such a skewed view of sex as a young person. Holy cow.
Oh, yeah.
I basically didn't even think that I was supposed to come.
Bullshit.
Wait.
Orgasm.
No, I know what that means.
Until she met me and I wouldn't drop the issue. She's like, oh, it's just not every time. I'm like, fuck that.
Yeah, you're a trooper.
Because if you came, it meant what?
It never would come up like
selfish,
in my young
pussy-ass
person
guys.
sex. Like it never, I never felt the urge to do it.
Oh, okay. You
like
weren't holding it back.
No, I wasn't holding it back.
Okay, yes.
It wasn't being
just
driven
wasn't.
there.
Yeah, it
by
wasn't.
bitch ass dudes.
That's not true. We were young.
Bitch
17,
ass
18,
dudes.
19.
Yeah.
Like, we were just too young.
And then,
yeah.
but the weird thing that I find with women, and I don't get this as a guy, and that's where I understand this bias and strange marketing of sex to people, is guys feel entitled to come. There's a whole thing like swallow the load, like all this around the patriarchy of the penis, and it's like to serve that. And then young girls, like women, are just like, oh, I guess it's just my service that I have to give this up to please the guy.
Being a good wife.
Fuck you pussy ass bitch ass dudes. You're a fucking brainwashed pussy ass bitch ass dude. I'm sorry. Holler at your boy. Get at me. I'll see you when I see you.
Okay, but also, like, they might be scared too. Like, they might be not communicating because, like, there's a two-way street, right?
Yeah,
like,
by the way, like, what I have learned about male sexuality is it's a lot more complicated than we've made it out to be.
Yeah.
And that in my practice, when I'm talking to guys, they want to have quality sexual encounters. They don't want to just fuck anything. They want to fuck the person who they're in a relationship with. And as a matter of fact, they are way more present and connected in a sexual encounter with their partner than they're like.
Fleshlight.
If it's a hetero relationship, then their wife is or partner is with them. Women tend to, when it comes to sex, because we have a harder time in, we have so many things that we're thinking about in our mind that to turn that off is difficult. So many women have all sorts of fantasies when they're having sex with their partner. They don't tell their partner because they're afraid that their partner is going to like be offended or upset. But in actuality, the fantasies get pretty in depth. Whereas guys, depending on the sex, right? If the sex is really just like predictable and the same thing over and over, guys will sometimes like start to use their fantasy world. But for the most part, they are way like in it. They have that ability to just stay in it, and that's how they often will express emotion is through sex. Like they weren't taught to do the verbal talking about feelings, and so sex becomes actually this really big thing for them. And that was one of the biggest learning.
It's beautiful.
Opportunities that
emotional athleticism. Your heart's going. It's true. There's mad expression going on there.
Yeah, for sure.
It makes sense that the pollinator would be given the present focus of like, oh, this is very stimulating.
Yeah, no, like whenever the woman says he'd fuck anything, like it's not just me, he just wants to get laid. I'm like, oh God, no, that is so not it.
That's not true.
Yeah.
That wasn't my story yesterday morning, let me tell you.
I'm just out here like, what the fuck? Editing the podcast, all sort of texting strippers over. I don't know.
That's so good.
Okay, where were we?
We're floating the cosmos of honesty once again, my friend.
Oh yeah, messages and shame and.
Did you have?
Oh yeah, your module.
You had questions for us, didn't you? Didn't you have some ideas? Didn't you?
I mean,
no,
well, I think I have asked you some questions, but I don't have, I mean, my questions would be really, really personal and about your sex lives and stuff. And I kind of feel like I don't know if I should do that. You know?
You want to try one?
Yeah.
But no pressure, I don't know.
I mean, I talk about sex on stage now, so I've gotten a lot more calm and chill about talking about it. Yeah. Although I do think it's expansive still. Even telling that story I was like, ooh,
that was such a good story. Oh my God.
It takes confidence to participate in it.
Okay, I have a question. If you were, okay, both of you have your own answer. If you picked having more sex or less sex but quality sex, right? More sex that was more predictable, it was fine, or less sex but when you did have sex, it was quality sex. What would you pick?
Quality.
Amazing. Okay. Yeah. I know. People I find will come into my office, especially if it's been like a low sex relationship. Typically, let's say hetero relationship, the guy is not getting enough sex. He's just like, and every time she like kisses him, he's just like, okay, hopefully this one goes to sex, right? And does this sound familiar for the two of you?
At one point, not all the time. More so, we know. I know a friend.
I think younger versions of us that didn't still know about sex.
Yeah, I think people who have been in where the relationship has had a real desire discrepancy, that the one that's getting less of it is like, I just want more of it. I don't care about the quality. But in actuality, once they start having more quality sex, they're like, oh yeah, I'll take that over the other. And so when the two of you, when you think about your ideal sexual experience, okay? So scale 0 to 10. 0 is like not sexual at all. 10 is after sex play or talk or whatever, right? When you think about the ideal sexual encounter, where does it start? And I'll give you an example. So some people might say, well, we would get up in the morning, we'd have coffee, we'd talk, we'd go for walks, and then maybe we'd do something romantic. Then we'd come home, and things would lead to sex. Whereas somebody else might be like, yeah, I would just like take off all of her clothes and like we'd go upstairs. It would start right. It would go like right into it. Winnie, what would be where would you want to start? Like if you think about an ideal, like you guys are going to have a date and you get to pick exactly how you want that day to go, where does sex come into it? And what would you be doing before?
This is an interesting question.
That's a great question.
Oh, good.
I feel like I am only sometimes in the mood for foreplay.
And when you say foreplay, what do you mean by that?
Like a half an hour before we're making out a bit, like maybe, some clothes come off, but there's touching, sensuality.
So sort of like build
like
up
to it.
Okay.
Yeah, but we're such teammates that when it's time, like when we're both feeling frisky, we're like, let's fucking go.
Yeah.
So I get but I like midday.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd be that my ideal time is I've had my morning.
Yeah.
I feel good.
So what is it that you do that makes you feel good that then it might make you open to the idea of having sex in the afternoon?
I think it's taking care of myself in the morning. I think that, and especially
taking care of yourself.
No, I don't masturbate very often.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
Well, it's probably because this one's trying to hump you all the time.
It's true.
Yeah.
I'm like, I have a thing for that.
You don't need that.
But when I do,
Here.
It's a good sesh whenever I do,
Yes.
It's quality
Yes.
over quantity
Okay.
for me.
Okay.
What was I?
But you were saying what puts you in the right headspace is you're really taking care of yourself.
Yeah. So I think when I had a full-time job even, which was just 2 years ago now, that we've kind of been doing this on our own, even then it was there was a little bit of tension around sex because it would be a more scheduling thing.
Yeah.
It'd be like, we're trying to do the podcast, I'm trying to act, I have a 50-hour-a-week job,
Yeah.
I'm also teaching yoga on top of that. We got to make sure that we get this in.
Yeah.
So it was at one point transactional, but still good. We made time for it.
Yeah.
Saved up that
So
energy.
So now, like we were just on vacation, right? Last week, say for example, and like it's just so easy when you're not thinking about bills and you're not thinking about walking the dog and you're not like kids. I can't even imagine like the whole kid aspect
Just
in
life.
in your life. And then so like on vacation, it's so easy to get down because there's nothing bringing you down. You want to get down.
Today, let's do
Yeah.
it.
Well, I always tell people, because everyone says this, they're like, but we went on vacation and it was so good. I'm like, okay, let's learn from that.
Yeah.
What was happening on your vacation that maybe you can bring into your life?
You allow yourself. That's why I like the question, because
yourself
you're like,
permission.
what was the mind state that allowed you to have that action of unabashed pleasure and schedule that
Exactly.
for yourself? And your question leads to prioritizing.
That's just what I was going to say. I think for the first time, like for the last couple of years, it's like I prioritize sex. So even when like my head's like being insane, I'll be like, hey, you know what would be good for you? An orgasm.
Yeah. Even though you're not actually horny at that time,
I'm not horny
you're
at that time.
neutral.
Yeah.
And then you're just like, because I'm telling you, so many people, they think they're broken with that kind of attitude because they think that they should be feeling horny, but to have that thought.
No, you got to get there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You need
I
to be
rarely
open.
get horny first.
Right.
I am always horny. It's
Which
crazy.
is not uncommon,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, it's not uncommon. It's more of a responsive desire for you, which means that something starts to happen. Maybe there's certain touch or whatever, and then you respond to it.
Yes.
Whereas you over here, it's more like spontaneous, where it's like switch on the light.
He'll
Ellevan's
surprise
ready.
me sometimes. I'm editing and I'm like, whoa, buddy, calm down. And then just like sometimes Wynn will walk by and I'm
must
like,
be
yo,
crazy.
check this out. And she's like, Jesus, like out
Come
of
on,
where?
nowhere. No consent. No, just kidding. I like it.
Oh, thank you.
But
no, I'm like,
I
Jesus.
often think though, like I think we both have more compassion and understanding for our very different sexual experiences.
So good. You
It's
need
fucking
to.
Because I'm
amazing.
like, that's crazy. Sometimes I'm like, bro, like that's crazy.
Yeah.
That
I'm like-
must feel insane.
I wake up and don't get access to control of my cognitive brain yet. I can't prioritize. There's like this raging animal desire that's like, implant a seed. Look at this. And it's
Crazy.
like, and the blood rushes and then
Yeah.
he's just there. And it's like, you can do something about this? I'm like, Wynn, what are you doing today? She's like, teaching yoga. I gotta leave. I'm like,
I'm going back to sleep.
Right. So for you, Wynn, it is very much like mindset, taking care of yourself, and being open to the possibility of having sex, even when you're not feeling horny, right? Where it's more trying to be intentional for the relationship, which is so good for people who are really, really busy, have busy lives. They have to be intentional about when they're going to have sex,
respect.
right? What about you? What's your ideal sexual encounter? What would be happening?
I'm having one now. I'm just.
So we're like 0 to 10,
I'm
right?
always there. Do you want to go to the nude beach? No. I think I'm naturally a romantic. Like my buddy Humble, who came over and he was hanging out with me, and it was just him and I hanging out. He's like, "You're so romantic." Like one day, I'm like, just even in a not sexual way.
Yeah.
I'm always in the mode of trying to soothe.
Yeah.
I think like
anticipating needs?
no, like, hey, well, maybe if your needs are bruschetta, you know what I mean? Like, let me put down something nice.
Not
to
if
snack
your
on.
needs are laundry.
Well, but this is what okay, but look. Esther Perel, I'm almost positive it was Esther Perel. She really nailed the whole eroticism thing.
Yeah.
Okay, because everyone's like, what the fuck's eroticism? And I'm like always trying to come up with like ways of describing. I'm like, it's just a feeling. But she had this great analogy. She's like, imagine your partner's outside gardening, and they you see, and they're sweating. It's a really
It's
hot
another
day.
garden analogy.
Shirts off, bandana
It's a really hot day, right?
Mm.
You're looking at them out the window. You see that they're going to start. They're coming inside, and you think, oh, they must be thirsty. So you go and you fill up a glass of water, and you meet them at the door with the glass of water. She's like, that is eroticism, where you start anticipating somebody else's need.
Then yes, I'm that. As a host, I'm always there. My dad was a really good like fine dining server, waiter, and I just watched him do that for money.
Yeah.
Like that bought me my first bike. And
Yeah.
I brought that to when I started to have musicians over. Like I just make individual peaches and put out charcuterie boards and like try to always make it comfortable. And we would get so much work done. And like we would just blast off and make an album. So I'm always kind of like that. And then it lends itself very well to opening up, relaxing, kicking it real, authenticity. Like I try to just live on that level.
So what do you do? Like if you're like, oh, I want to have more of a romantic, quality sexual experience with Winnie,
I'll soothe her.
Like what do you mean?
I'll find good ways to soothe her in the things that she doesn't want to do. Like of course food plays a role in that.
Also, he's a great massager.
Amazing.
And so sometimes those massages start very therapeutically.
And then they don't end very therapeutically.
Well, it's therapeutic.
Well, I guess
Unless it's a fantasy.
Yeah.
Therapy.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Give her the therapy. Sorry.
I'm also not really a romantic.
Yeah, she's very not. So she'll put up every roadblock to every reach of romantic gesture that's supposed to be cognitively charming. Like she'll just be like, nah. Just
Even when I'm the one like pursuing him or advancing him sexually, like I'm pretty clunky.
Yeah,
How do
she's
you
like,
guys do? So, okay, I have another question. When it comes to initiating sex, would you say it's like equal, or who's like more of the sexual initiator?
For a long time, it was me.
And probably, well, I guess it has become more equal.
I think it's become more equal. I was going to say, like, it's probably 50-50 these days.
Yeah.
Like, she'll pull me away from mixing to be like, let's get a session before I got to leave for this class or whatever.
That.
Yeah, it's really good.
And are you ready to go when she does that?
It's very hard because I'm also attached to my work and I
very
love
hard?
what I'm doing. I'm always hard, it seems. But no, I'm able to like switch it on. I'm like, okay, back crack, water. And then she'll be there just like lights on, messy room. And like, and I'm just like, okay. And I'm like, turn on red lights, put on frequencies, put on incense, set the tone. Like, I need a little soothing. You're not going to do that. So I'm going to do that for me.
Yes.
And like Winnie's down to just like warehouse, lights on.
Well, I think that I'm better if we're on a time crunch. I'm more like,
no, that's what I mean. Let's go. So, but for me, I'll do that work if I feel I need that work.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you got to do that and set that up. That's just my point. And then she enjoys it. And then the sexual frequencies, shamanic drums. YouTube, shamanic drums, nice rhythm to that. Tune into a rhythm, you know, whether you're doing top or bottom, doesn't matter. Okay, and then, but it's honestly, we can go between both, like flick a light switch, like close off, let's go, mission style, and then also like there's been times where it just naturally unfurls, but that's rarer. I think the slow walk in.
Yeah, it's kind of like fast food, which can be very good sometimes, versus like a Michelin star type of meal where it's like.
But there's some really good steaks in there in the middle somewhere.
Yes, 100%.
In the middle, there's like a keg, and that's solid too.
Oh, I love the
a
keg.
Thursday morning keg.
Yes.
Yeah. There's rarely a time where we're kind of like let's get this done, and then afterwards it feels like fast food.
No, it
like
feels good.
it's still pretty awesome.
Yeah. I don't knock fast food. It's fast food all the time. That's where people will run into some problems. And so there's always a space for fast food. There's a space in the middle, and then there's the space. But again, who am I? It's the couple.
Yeah.
Michelin star, like you gotta have time.
Oh my God, yes.
you need. There's, you gotta get dressed up. You might get your hair blown out for a Michelin star
might get
restaurant.
Your back blown out.
Like that's not realistic for all the time either.
No, but that's
and it wouldn't even be
sex,
like, ugh, yeah, like what
know?
are you looking forward to then? What's your level
also,
up?
It's like, live your day. I like the allure. I think that there's something kind of sexual about scheduling it.
I love scheduling it.
I think that like
you get into your head, you can like think about it and stuff.
The transaction of the pleasure, that intention is great. I think the mechanicals of that expression is important. It's like going to the gym almost. Like it's good
Especially
for your brain.
with, like,
someone
it's
that
so
you
lucky
trust.
that we
Exactly.
we get to trust and love each other too.
I just think it's amazing that you've been together for as long as you have, and
Thank you.
your sex life sounds, I know I've said this before, and you're like, well, it's not perfect. I'm like, but I feel like
It's good.
sexy vibes.
That's good. Thank you.
It's a good sex life.
See, this is why we wanted to put you between us.
Yeah, I know. I'm like,
What does Jim Carrey do with the Jennifer Aniston and that Bruce Almighty? Sexual or something like that? I don't know. I don't remember.
Oh my God.
We're sexually new.
We're not trying to pressure you.
I know.
You're like, I know.
I gotta go.
Why do you think that there's a lack of sex therapists, right? You actually left your relationship therapy to like, not, I know that you still do that within sex therapy, but you're like, you only take on people who want to also discuss sex.
Yeah. Well, honestly, it's really my favorite conversation. I have learned that when sex isn't involved in the work that I do, it's not as satisfying. That it's I am, and I because I think I can, and I'll ask about. I always ask whoever comes in. Part of my assessment always has a question around sex, because I think it's pretty impossible that anyone gets away with not having some kind of sexual shame, or whether it be through religious beliefs or culture or family stuff, right? And I find that when people, in my earlier days as a therapist, it was more just non-sexual, working in a hospital. Sex is a very privileged conversation to have with people. If people don't have a place to live, people don't have money, if people are in danger, they are not thinking about how they can improve their sex life.
Yeah.
Right? They're dealing with their basic needs. So,
that's what I say. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
That's what I say about like meditation and mindfulness too. I'm like, it is a privileged thing to be able to do that. I think it's an important thing that if you are in the position to do it, like I think that there's growth there. But like someone who doesn't have their basic needs covered, it's like you can't.
Yeah.
You can't just go off to La La Land. And I mean, I'm sure there is the odd person that can, but like generally speaking, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure. And when it comes to sex, it's a conversation, including therapists, that can bring up a lot of discomfort, because ultimately therapists are humans too and have their own history. And many people aren't comfortable talking about sex with their clients, or they don't feel like they should be talking about sex with their clients because their sex life is shit. Right. And so the niche of sex therapy is small, which is unfortunate. And if you are privileged enough to go on and become a certified sex therapist, you've already had to have gotten a master's degree to do that. So you're somewhat in a financially stable situation. Right. If you look at sex therapists who are certified, 90%, 95% of them are white. Which is a problem, because we're all learning Western ideas of what healthy sexuality is, but there are cultures that are doing sex in very different ways. That is fascinating. And but like when people come to me, like my practice is quite diverse and cross-cultural, and many of my couples are cross-cultural, and And so I had to do a lot of the learning on my own, right? Or starting to follow people on Instagram, you know, people of color who can like give different perspectives, who I can learn from, because I'm learning. All the research is mostly on white people. But now hopefully, because this is very important to me to be able to like bring more diversity to the field, hopefully we will gain more interest in therapists feeling comfortable enough to join like a certification, like in Ontario, that, because it's hard as a person of color to come into an organization that is all white.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel safe. It doesn't feel comfortable. But with time, we are becoming more diverse. And so I think more people are interested. And now that it's in the media a little bit more, lots of people want to be sex therapists now. Which is so amazing. So amazing.
Yes.
But as a sex therapist with my clients, like obviously I can't freaking go home with them, you know, like boundaries. And also, but when it comes to like homework and stuff like that, it's like there's like 2 people or something that you can say, hey, go on that app or do that. And that's why I developed the unlearning, the modules that I'm hopefully very soon going to be dropping. But it's exercises that people can do that either as an adjunct to therapy or just like self-guided
I'm
learning.
interested.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm all about this module.
Yeah,
I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm so excited about this first module. And then I think as time goes on and just learning about, you know, what are people wanting to learn about. And so the sexual shame one is the first module, because that's kind of where you need to start.
Because everyone has it.
Everybody has it. And then, you know, we can start talking about things like sensate-focused therapy and fisting and how to get through a fisting fight.
Fisting fight.
Well,
that's beautiful.
I think that you're
Tremendous
doing
work.
such great work with my own like sexual journey. I think it's similar to like the weed. Like people are like, ooh, sex, ooh, weed. Like, ooh, don't talk about it. Don't look at it. Just like do it in private in your own time. And it doesn't make any sense.
Let's take the devil's veil off, though. And this is something I do where I, with questionable authority and things that I don't like and always the enemy and the bad side, I flip the perspective and I think about, like, you know, why that evil may be serving. And then you think about that shame exists as a necessary evil for some fantasy.
Do you know why,
darkness, though? Like, it's serving a role. Please.
Interesting.
Before the times of birth control,
right?
We needed to somehow like
limit
control. So they put shameful ideas.
They controlled us. They brainwashed us about
but
it.
Now we have those
safety,
options,
communication,
right? Monogamy, like all of those things, right? We want to protect people from diseases, protect people from having babies. And so that's like shame. And maybe back in the day, like that was what I guess needed to happen, but it doesn't need to be there anymore. So now it's like trying to deprogram everybody, and people are just like, because when I say to people, where's that belief from? Is it based in fact? They're like,
never.
No, I guess not. And I think when they realize that, they're just like, fuck.
They've been living under brainwashing pretenses. That's society. You have to break away from it.
Yes.
You're not under obligation to get down however people get down where you're from. Like, have your own thoughts. It's important. And that new level of self-empowerment through sex, discernment, you say what goes on with your body. How wonderful is that? You're not just under service of obligation. Like, that's old times, man. That's dark age stuff.
Yep.
We have to be here
So this obviously comes with like self, I guess, for lack of a better word right now, improvement and like mindfulness, obviously.
Yep.
But like how long, like what does a sexually healthy general population look like? Like what do you want the future of your work to look like?
Honestly, I think it's less based on this ideal of people doing certain things. It comes down, it's individually people being able to feel lighter and free of shame so they can make decisions about their body that actually feel good, and that they can feel okay about having pleasure. And if people want to be in monogamous relationships, that's amazing. If people don't, that's amazing. I just want people to not have that shame.
The conflict, that unnecessary
it's the conflict.
Don't,
exactly.
Like, follow it's okay. Like, I always just imagine, like make it very black and white and simple, and the shame that some people felt perhaps coming out as a gay person if they were brought up in a conservative or Christian household that didn't have that sort of, like, reasonable acceptance, you know, like they weren't given that gift. And it's like, fuck, could you imagine trying to battle those thoughts? Like,
I see it.
Trying to say, no, I'm not. And you're like, bro, just what feels good? Like, you want to express yourself that way? Like, follow that. And then it's like more people trusting that God flow of like that what feels right.
Yeah.
Like, go for that. Your life is supposed to blossom in that direction.
Yeah.
But there's going to be those, you said those mental structures set up to control.
Yeah, there also, you have to surround yourself in a community.
And that's always been special about the LGBTQ community. That's like, as a young man, my mom brought me into that. Like, we'd go to the parades, and I was like, whoa, this is... If you're alone on Sundays, you come to this neighborhood. Like, like I was the only child in these streets, and I was hanging out with these, you know, it was beautiful. And it's like, you're right, community is beautiful.
Community is so important, to be around people who share similar values, because it's really just not helpful to be around people who are judging, who are critical of you, because it only brings up our own fear around ourselves, right? And so community is really important. I would just want people to, like, worry about other things. Sex is the one thing that we have been given this ability to have the most amazing feeling from an orgasm, from touch, and we are trying to deny ourselves of that. Like, it's magical, right?
It's magical.
Like a kind of magical experience that our body gives
divine.
us.
It's totally divine.
Right? It's like something we were given, and we are trying to not feel pleasure.
Bizarre.
Unnecessary.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Don't torture yourself.
No.
Feel it. Use it. If you got it, shake what your mom gave you.
Pleasure's the measure. Those aren't my words. There's some other famous sex therapist.
Fine. We're going to quote you.
I know. And then I'm going to get fucking sued.
I just absolutely adore you, and thank you so much for coming on again. You inspire me and like are helping me in my sexual journey, and like thank you for your podcast and having thoughtful guests and thoughtful questions. You're such a great podcast host and a lovely person.
Get some. Go listen to Get Some.
We'll link that below.
But can I just tell you guys how much I feel so comfortable with the two of you. Like, I think we have a nice, like, little energy going on between us. You guys have been so lovely to me and so supportive of my journey, because the podcast world is a little bit crazy and intense and fun, but like, oh my goodness. And so it's been really nice having you guys as, like, my friends. Like, that's how I see you guys. So,
same.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to leave any important sexual messages that you want to leave the people with?
People on the way out, skis.
Join my newsletter.
Yes! Join her newsletter.
Join my newsletter. Go and get some.ca. Join my fucking newsletter, please.
I got your newsletter yesterday.
Oh, did you?
Yes.
Oh, it was so cute.
Yeah, it was cute.
Anybody who's out there who is questioning or feeling conflicted about their relationship with their body and with sex, just to know that it doesn't have to be this way, right? And that being open to other ways of thinking, being able to think about some of the ideas that you and beliefs that you have, and just thinking and asking yourself, is this a fact or is this an interpretation from a message that somebody told me at some point in my life?
Oof.
Right? That's all I want you to do. But that's all I have to say.
You are the sweetest and cutest and loveliest, and we appreciate you so much for being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Love.
Subscribe to her, subscribe to us, tell your friends, share this with people maybe you want to communicate about sex with.
Talk about sex.
Like,
send them nudes and this.
with their consent.
Yeah, if they'd like that.
I was like,
Love you guys.
bye.
Bye.
Keep it hard.
Oh my God.
Let's go.
That
Ever see something so true that you couldn't unsee it? Something that you just knew would serve you. Welcome to Disciplined Stoners, the gateway drug to mindfulness. Spark up or don't, and enjoy the show. Glad you're here. Like, I grow, you grow, you grow, I grow, you know, like